So if your business is almost completely dependent on referrals and you're looking to scale the business beyond just referrals and have something that's more predictable, more scalable, and allows you to grow the business with more predictability, then in this video, I'm going to share a few strategies of exactly how you can do that, how you can both leverage referrals and also move beyond referrals when your business is completely dependent on them. So basically, let's first establish where the business is at right now and what we mean by a business that is dependent on referrals. So for starters, I look at traffic as like a quadrant, okay? You've basically got only four ways that you can drive traffic, four strategies at the highest level. Everything else that falls under these four things are what I consider methods. So the strategies themselves, you've got outreach, referrals, content, and ads. Or as many people who I've shared this strategy with, they call it the orca strategy, which orcas are terrifying creatures. So we'll go with it though. Okay, so if you're in this position where your business is dependent on referrals, what this typically means is that in the beginning, as you were getting started, you did some form of relationship building or outreach. What I mean by this is like some people are like, oh, DMs. Not necessarily DMs. That is a method within the strategy of outreach, but this could be some form of relationship building. You get your first client through some form of communication of like, hey, I'm doing this thing, right? This is what I do now. This is how I'm helping people. And you're telling people about that. That's an outreach-based strategy, no matter how you cut it. And then you get that client, or you get a few clients or customers, and you blow them out of the water. You provide a great service, you provide great work, and then they tell others about you, and that brings you referral-based business. Now, you get the referral, you blow them out of the water, you do a great job, they're so happy, and then they refer people. And when this process that we just talked about happens, this is what we mean as a business owner specifically when we're talking about a business being dependent on referrals, right? Now, you may have said at one point or another with some pride maybe of, hey, I don't need to advertise. My business relies on referrals. And this means that you're providing a great service, but internally, you know that your business is in this feast or famine cycle, and referrals do not come in usually consistently and or with predictability. And so while you may have a business that runs on referrals, and it should be something of pride, if you also want to grow and have a greater impact on more people, then you need a system that can help you to move beyond just referral business. You need a system that allows you to grow predictably. If you truly do provide the best service for your customer, then it is your responsibility, right? It is your responsibility to reach as many of the people in your customer base as possible. One, to help them avoid having a bad experience with your competitors, and two, to make sure that they get the best services, the best results, which only your service can provide. And so while it's great that you are dependent on referrals, internally you know that you need to move beyond referrals, okay? Your employees need it, you need it, the customer needs it. And it's your responsibility to reach more of your ideal customers so that they can have the best experience possible. So now that we've established what is a business that is dependent on referrals and how referrals work and how your business has worked to this point, I'm going to share a few strategies of how you can quickly and actually pretty easily move beyond referrals. So the first step is by moving into the next phase of the quadrant. We talked about outreach, referrals, content, and ads. Now, a lot of people want to go right from referrals to ads. And I'm going to tell you why this is not a great idea. Ads are an amplification of what is already working. Content is basically, at its simplest form, preemptively answering questions that arise in the sales process. And so when I look at a move to go right from referrals, which, like, let me put it this way, if somebody comes to you as a referral, that is the second easiest type of client to close. The first easiest is somebody who's already done business with you and had a good experience, somebody who's already given you money and they've had a good experience working with you. That's the first easiest type of business to close. The second easiest is a referral. Okay. So when somebody is coming to you as a referral, they're already warm. They already know who you are. They've already heard some things about you. And this makes the sale easier to close. That is why you should move from referrals to content over referrals to ads. Because when you're using ads, when you move to that layer of the quadrant, what this means is that you have your message dialed in to a cold audience that doesn't know you, and you are moving them to the point where they are a warm audience or equal to or a little less than the warmth of a referral before they do business with you. Now, at scale, what you're doing is you're spending money to acquire clients. You're spending money to get in front of people. And the problem is that when you're spending money to get in front of people, when they come to you, in the case of you've been doing referrals, you're used to a certain warmth of client getting to you, and then you jump right to ads, your systems are set up, your sales systems, the questions you're used to answering are set up as basically there to convert a warm prospect. Whereas with ads, you're going to have cold prospects coming in, which you're going to identify as unqualified leads, and you may conclude that the advertising platform that you used, like Facebook or Google or YouTube or whatever you used, doesn't work, when the reality is that it's actually just somebody that's at a different level in the sales process. And this can hold you back for a long time because you've made an assumption that this doesn't work, when the reality is you just weren't ready for it. The business didn't have the systems for it. And so when you instead move from referrals to content, this will give you a much better platform or a much better foundation to move into ads when you're ready. And let me explain why that is. In the sales process, you will have, even with a referral, even with a warm customer, you will have questions that pretty much always come up that everybody needs answered, right? And when those happen, you or your sales staff or whoever this is, you just go on that autopilot, right? You hear the question, you basically like know the response before they even ask it. So as soon as they ask, this prospect asks the question, you just fire off the answer and it's automatic, right? You don't even think about it anymore because over the years of doing this or whatever amount of time you've done this, you've found the best way to answer that question, right? This is a great opportunity for you to make a move into content, because if you sit down, you can probably list the 10, 15, or 20 questions, top questions that you get with almost every sale that you make. And those are data points. Those are people who are asking you questions specifically that they need answers to before they move forward and work with you. So why this is such a great opportunity is if you take that list of 10 or 20 questions that everybody asks or most people ask before they work with you, this is a great opportunity for you to basically sit down in front of a camera, answer to that. You could write it down in the form of a blog article or a FAQ or something like that, and then get in front of a camera and talk about it. And those things are content, or somebody on your team can. It doesn't have to be you. But when you're creating content that answers questions that your prospects were already asking, and then you're publishing that content, it is helping people to have a better user experience. And when they see you on that video or they see that article that you've already answered this question perfectly, it helps them to have more confidence. And largely, this is a big chunk of what content marketing is. It's largely answering questions that your market is already asking. So this does two things for you. One, it makes it so that your referrals have a better experience with your company, because in the process, you could send an email, you could send a text, whatever it is, and say, hey, we often get a lot of these questions when we're about to do business with somebody. Here's a list of some of the most common questions that people ask that we wanted to share with you so that you could prepare yourself, get ready, have some thorough answers. And this is going to help them to have confidence in you, and it's going to help them to have a better user experience. The other thing this is going to do is this is going to create organic traffic that comes to your business that now is much warmer because they've already consumed some content. You've already answered some of their questions preemptively, and this is going to help them feel more comfortable with you when they get on the phone or when they meet you in person. So it's going to not only improve the sales process and make business easier to close, but it's also going to make it so that you're getting some additional traffic that is not based on referrals. And because of how these social media algorithms work, as you share this content with potential prospects, these platforms are going to identify those people, and it's going to start showing that content to people who are similar to those people already. Now, the great thing about this strategy is when you have pieces of content, not every piece of content is going to take off and go viral, right? That's not the case. That's not the point here for this particular strategy. The point is when you have pieces of content that work really well, it's much easier to take a piece of content that works really well and amplify it through ads. So you basically now you have these 2 or 3 pieces of content out of 10 that are your top performers. You now are able to amplify the messages that you already know work to help get more of a cold audience into your business. And you can now put ad dollars behind what's already working. And now you've moved into the 4th quadrant, which is advertising. So that's the first thing that you can do to move beyond referrals and make basically that entire process more streamlined, more efficient, and move you through the other strategies to get clients. Now, the other thing you can do is if you want to stay in the referral strategy bucket, you don't want to get into doing content, you don't want to get into doing ads, you want to stay in the referral bucket, right? You want your business to be dependent on referrals, but you don't want the restriction of leverage that comes with being overly dependent on referrals. In that case, you can do what I call a leveraged referral strategy. Now, the way that we talked about referral strategy typically working is you get a customer, you do a great service for them, and then they give you referrals, right? They give you a referral. Now, this is the inconsistent part because it could be the circumstances. Not everybody's going to give referrals, all those different reasons, right? However, if that is the case, one leveraged referral strategy that you can employ is simply looking at, instead of just waiting on referrals, you can promote referrals. So what I mean by that is after the customer is just blown away by your service and you've done great work, instead of waiting for them to get a referral, you can do something like ask them for a review or a testimonial. When they give you the review or the testimonial, you can say, hey, this is just a great review or testimonial. We would love to promote this in our advertising. Can we use this in our advertising? Most people will say yes. You get a waiver that you can use their testimonial in your advertising. Great. Now you can advertise other people talking about your business is better than you talking about your business. So that is one way that you can basically say, I'm not going to use content, but you're taking the referral and you're using it as an ad. You are skipping ahead, but it's not your voice and your message. It's what your customers say about you. It's social proof. The other thing you can do is after they've given you that testimonial or that review, what you can do is you can say, hey, thank you for the testimonial. This is a great review. Is there anybody, friends, family, people that you work with that you think would also benefit from getting this result that we provided for you? This gives a foundation for them to start thinking about it. And what you're doing is you're more actively promoting that referral process. So that's one way to leverage referrals is you're coming at it systematically to say, hey, we're not going to just sit back and wait passively. We're going to promote and ask for the referrals and get potential content or potential ads that we can use to generate more referrals. That's the first way that you can leverage referrals systematically. And there's a lot more things that you can do that are just like that to throw gas in the fire, have a greater impact. But this other way to leverage referrals is probably the most powerful, and you could build a very, very successful business off of this strategy alone. What you're going to find is that if you want to leverage referrals to the max, what you'll find is some of the people that are giving you referrals were not customers. Some of the people that are giving you referrals are people who have a service that complements your service and happens before your service. I'll give you an example of this from my personal business. When I was running my advertising agency, our number one referral source in the beginning, later it changed, but in the beginning, our number one referral source were web development companies. What do web development companies want? They want to provide a beautiful website for their customer. And when they get that beautiful website for the customer, a lot of times the customer assumes that the beauty of that website, it was going to be a build it and they will come. And they're just like, well, we're just going to get more traffic because it's new and it's beautiful. And the web developer knew that was not the case, and they tried to prepare them for that. So they would launch the website, and what was the best thing that could happen when they launched that website? The best thing that could happen is a lot of people came to that website. The worst thing that could happen is there was no change, and often the customer would blame the web developer and say, well, maybe, you did something wrong and people don't like it. I like it, but maybe they don't like it. And so what we did is I went out specifically because I found that most of my referrals were coming from web development agencies. And when I intentionally went out and built relationships with the web development agencies, what I found was that I could basically embed myself in their sales process. So I would go to them and I would take them out to eat. I would bring them valuable things into their office. And what would happen is the web developer would basically embed me in their sales process. What I mean by that is they would say, hey, we know that the customer expects there to be an increase in traffic once we launch this website. And we know that it probably is not going to happen because they don't have good SEO, they don't have good advertising, all this stuff. Would you come in and educate these clients that we would refer to you a little bit, put together something where we refer them to you before the site is done and you start educating them on the advertising process? And I would say, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. And so I would educate them on the advertising process so that when the website was done, we would have a plan to promote their website and they would know what to expect. Now, when we did this, of course, because I put together the plan for them, they would want my agency to be the one that did the advertising for them. They're like, we don't want to mess with this online stuff. We don't want to mess with these Google ads. It's too complicated. Can you just do it for us? So as a result, I built a relationship with somebody who, one, had a service that complemented my own, but two, that person also came before me in the client's process. And when you have that combination, what you're able to do is you're able to systematically and in a leveraged way generate referrals. On average, each web developer that I had a relationship brought me 2.5 clients over the course of a year. And so this was a leverage referral strategy. Now, as my own service evolved and I became more skilled at delivering that service, the person who was referring clients to me changed. The formula did not change. It was still me going out, building relationships with people who had a similar client, but did not have a competing service, and were basically their service was improved by referring people to me. So it's kind of like when you go to Amazon, you put something in your cart before you check out, they're like, people who bought this also bought this, right? These things go together. What you're looking for is who has your same customer base, works with them before you would in the process or before they would need your services. And ideally, their services are improved or complemented by referring people to you. And this is a leveraged referral system. And what your focus then becomes is going out and building relationships with these people so that they will, one, refer business to you, And two, start to embed you in their sales process so that you can get leveraged referrals. System to acquire clients that is outside of what you're doing now and has more leverage, that is more scalable. These are the strategies that I would employ. The last one that I provided you is probably the most powerful. You can do one of them. You can, and in my opinion, you probably should do all of them together, but I would still take them one at a time. So if you want to go bigger, if you want to grow, if you want to improve how you're getting referrals and scale, those are the ways to do it. If you enjoyed this video, I want to create more videos like this to benefit business owners and share some experiences that I've had over the years. If you liked this video, if you like these strategies, I've got a lot more to share. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. I'd love to have you here. I'd love to see more of you and see your comments, and would love to hear what other questions you have I can answer and what other videos I can create that would benefit your business.